How about the Memphis Tigers coming off the top rope on a Monday afternoon? If you haven't seen the news, Memphis has made a pitch to the Big 12 to join that conference. That, frankly, I don't know how the Big 12 says no to it. Memphis has told the Big 12, hey, listen, here's what we're thinking. You let us into the Big 12. We will give your schools $200 million over the course of the next 5 years in sponsorship money, mainly from FedEx and Lowe's home improvement stores. You let us into the conference, we don't take any TV money for 5 years. And if at the end of the 5 years, which is when the Big 12 will be renegotiating its TV contracts that it currently has with Fox and ESPN, if you don't think we're adding value, you can kick us out of the conference. That's a big-time deal. That makes SMU's bid to join the ACC of, hey, we won't take any TV money for 7 years, look like a kid's tea party compared to what Memphis just offered the Big 12. And so when you have that information, we'll give you $200 million in sponsorship. We won't take TV money. And after 5 years, you think we're not adding any value to the conference, you kick our ass out. I don't know how the Big 12 says no to that. My initial reaction to reading that is that it's put up or shut up time for Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, because just a few weeks ago at Big 12 Media Days, he was asked about his statements that he's made several times that the Big 12 is open for business. Many people took that to mean that the Big 12 is open to conference realignment, that it is willing and ready to hear pitches. Now, Brett Yormark stopped short of that, and what he said was that the Big 12 is open for business means that we are always seeking revenue opportunities, that we are always willing and ready to hear about how we can make the conference and our member institutions more money, because that's the name of the game in college football and college sports as a whole today. If you don't have an unlimited armory of dollars at your disposal, you're going to get left behind. Here's $200 million being offered to the Big 12. So if you're going to tell me that you are open for business and you're going to do everything you can to chase financial opportunities that better your member institutions, I would be hard-pressed to hear how those schools can turn down sponsorship money from the likes of FedEx and Lowe's to keep Memphis out of your conference. One, it's an immediate cash influx, but then also, two, what it does for the conference down the line, because the Big 12, and I think this is smart and wise, by the way, is positioning themselves as, yes, we might not be in the top 2 football conferences anymore, but you're hard-pressed to find a better basketball conference than us. And I think that's a pretty good idea. So adding a school like Memphis only solidifies that down the line, and all it does is help beef up that basketball contract down the line as well. Now, there is some consternation within the Big 12. A quick report from Yahoo Sports said that you need 12 of the 16 schools to get into the conference, and they're not sure that Memphis is going to have that support. One high-ranking source was quoted as saying, quote, "We vetted them when we added UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston. What's changed? Question mark." End quote. I'll tell you what's changed. $200 million. Dr. Eva, $200 million. That's what's changed. Memphis hasn't really changed as an athletic department. The demographics haven't changed. The success hasn't really changed. But now they're bringing $200 million. They're bringing 1/5 of $1 billion to your conference over the course of the next 5 years. That is what has changed. And it's lucrative for the future, too, because it's essentially like setting an expansion fee in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, WNBA, whatever the case may be. You are setting the market for, hey, you want to join our conference? Well, Memphis did this. So what are you going to do? Because once you've set that market, the Big 10, the Big 12 can now hold anybody else who wants in hostage. Memphis gave us $200 million in no TV money for 5 years. You think just because you're whatever school, you think just because you're Tulane, you're going to get in scot-free? No, sorry. So all that does is add future revenue to your conference. Now, I understand the downside of that. I understand that the look that gives to the rest of the college football world. And it's similar to what the ACC did with SMU. It looks as if you bought your way into the conference. And does that make the ACC look bad? Kinda. Does that make the Big 12 look bad if Memphis gets in by paying a king's ransom? Kinda. But you got $200 million more bucks to at least plug your ears with. I think that's a somewhat nice thing to have, frankly. On the flip side of this, does this make Memphis look super serious and committed, or does it make them look desperate? And I don't know that the longer that I've sat here and questioned that myself, I don't know that I have an answer of how I feel about that. Because if this proposal to the Big 12 doesn't work, what will? Now, I don't think the Big 12 is really in a situation to haggle over price here. I don't think they can come back and say, $200 million is nice, but how do you feel about 300, 350? Could you get that? Because that feels ridiculous. Somebody comes to you with $200 million, was like, hey, please let me have a play date with you. $200 million, and you're trying to look a gift horse in the mouth. I don't think that's a great idea. But that's a fair question. If this proposal from Memphis doesn't work, whatever will for the Tigers? It sounded like they had an opportunity to join the Pac-12 that conceivably wasn't going to cost them $200 million. But if this doesn't work, where do you turn next? So I would think that it's maybe both. You can be serious and desperate at the same time, right? You're so serious, you did the legwork to provide sponsorships to all of these schools in the Big 12 to have them let you into their club. That's pretty serious work. It's also somewhat desperate. I think it can be both. If Memphis has found the money to get into a P4 conference, to get that $200 million from the likes of FedEx and Lowe's, to get into the Big 12, does it also have the money to upgrade its facilities, to hire and retain great coaches, to maybe add programs or invest so they can stay at the top of the football, basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, baseball race that the Big 12 does care about? I think that's another fair question. And then finally, how does this make the American Conference, freshly rebranded today, by the way, not the American Athletic, not the AAC, the American Conference with a cartoon eagle to go with it? Cool. How does it make the American look? Because I think it makes the American look shaky as all get out, that if somebody has put together a deal to get $1/5 billion out of some corporate partners to get out of that conference, not the greatest look in the world ever, is it? Because it then looks like you're on somewhat shaky ground, because how and why would a school go to such lengths to leave that conference to get to another one? Now, I understand that the perception is that if you are involved in a Power 4 conference, even if it's a diminished Power 4 conference like the Big 12, I think undeniably is now compared to where it was when it had Texas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Missouri and Nebraska, it's still better than the American. And that's something that the American is always going to have to deal with. That all of the schools that are in the American, even if it's the East Carolinas and the Army Navies of the world, would rather be somewhere else. And that's a difficult perception to get over. And if Memphis does leave, Where does the American turn? Do you add another school that wishes they were somewhere else? I think that's always been the Americans' brand, is it is not necessarily a conference of comfort as much as it is a conference of necessity. And Memphis, to their credit, I think, has recognized that this has been a conference of necessity. And that's only tenable for so long. So the way to get out of it is to pony up the expansion fee to the Big 12 and say, I'm willing to buy my way into your conference. Here's what I got. What's your price? But I think it all goes back to the Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark saying the Big 12 is open for business. And I don't know how many business deals they're going to find that are worth more than $200 million. I think that's a tough thing to turn down. And I think it's something to watch over the course of the next couple of weeks. What do you think? If you were the Big 12, you taking that money? If you're Memphis, is that enough money? Do you have more money? Does this set a bad precedent going forward? I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.